the trick with investing is always trying to be ahead of the curve. That's why I'm looking at these suburbs, because the growth potential is still there. It's still accessible to a lot of first-time investors.
Well, I don't think I'll ever buy a blue chip corridor property just because I've seen how much faster you can outgrow those areas.
Demand is just outstripping supply, and the demand dictates the price. Whether you're a first home buyer, whether you're an investor, you look at areas that most people haven't started looking at. There is an inherent risk there because we can't predict the future. In general, if you're willing to hold it for the long run, property always goes up. If you get in at the right time in the right corridors and you get in early, be it north or south, you actually have the potential to really capitalize on that growth. I love the projects in the north. The future development there is absolutely massive. I just feel from an infrastructure point of view,
We're kicking off Getting Hot, which is a series for investors. Today we're talking about the age-old debate, north versus south, and where the opportunity lies. Is it in the south or is north where you should be putting your money? We've got two of our property investment partners. So we've got Nash representing the south and we have Conor representing the north. And it's going to be a ferocious fight. Like we say, go hard, but no clawing the face. Kick it off, guys.
We'll start off talking about, I'll probably go first. So we'll talk about north and south. I'm obviously doing the north. Three suburbs I'm going to go through Eglinton. I'm going to group Sinagra and Mariginiup into one, and then Brabham as well. So start off with Eglinton. I think where I see the valley is it's a pretty easy progression story up. We know north-south with Perth's really stretches along the coastline.
Yeah.
Seeing a lack of land available in the southern end, but also same sort of thing in the north end with regards to having good amenities around. I think with the progression of Alkimos as the perfect example, that's no longer a growth suburb anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a blue chip.
Yeah.
It's established. It's got all the amenities you need. Eglinton's a flow-on effect from that. So you're seeing quite a young demographic out in Eglinton, like a lot of first home buyers, and there's still a fair bit of land between that and Yanchep. But you got the train station that's open up. You probably haven't felt the growth of Eglinton come into effect yet. One thing it is suffering a touch from is schools. There's schools like planned. There's not a whole heap in the actual estates themselves.
Yeah.
But I think if you're looking over like a 10 to 15 year period, once that stretch of coastline in the north from Alkimos all the way through to Yanchep's all soaked up, your price is going to go through the roof again, because you're not really going to see too much action further out than Two Rocks, because it doesn't come practical to drive an hour and a half into the city where there's other options. Again, being close to this beach you can still get in for what, 750, 800K for a decent sized house. If you're looking nationwide at even like Adelaide, anywhere in Sydney, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, you're looking at millions of dollars. Whereas here it's still relatively affordable. I think that's the main fundamental driver. Is just there's eventually going to be, there's only so much land that people in Perth can get access to the beach before it's not practical for work purposes anymore.
The three locations I'll be looking at in the south would be Baldivis, Karnup, and I'll go a little bit more inland to like the Mundijong-Whitby area. Just like you said, linear progression of developments in WA. So in the south right now, the one that's probably up and coming is Baldivis. And when we talk about things like infrastructure, we talk about schools, we talk about master plan projects. Baldivis already has a little bit more. In terms of offerings. You've got the private schools there, you've got good public schools. The infrastructure is already in place. It's right on, it's basically being developed around the Kwinana Freeway. You've got lots of shopping amenities there. And you basically also have, when it comes to investment opportunities, you also have the DHA. Because it falls within the radius of the Oscars project, Garden Island City. And one thing that you also talked about, how about people who don't want to have a coastal lifestyle and drive more than an hour to the city. You're talking about Bunbury. One of the biggest differences I see in the south is that rental and land affordability to build, whether it's to rent, in the southwest, is significantly more. You could be paying probably $1,000 a week in rent there.
Yeah.
Simply because you can't find properties, and the land development situation there is significantly slower. So what I've noticed is that a lot of people actually prefer to stay within the Baldivis, Karnup, even Mandurah areas, and take that commute down.
Yeah.
If they're working around that area, simply because it's 40 minutes to an hour. So you're not just tapping on the demographics who are working in the city. You're also tapping on the demographics who are working in the Southwest.
Yeah.
Rockingham itself is actually a massive suburb on its own.
Yeah.
Self-sufficient. You've got the hospitals.
City. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little city. It's like a mini city. You also have a lot of jobs there. You have the refineries in the Kwinana area. And all of these are basically about a 10-15 minute drive from Baldivis.
Yeah.
So logically speaking, with the way growth is expanding linearly down,
yeah,
Baldivis is going to be a hotspot. You're already seeing it with the land prices going up significantly in Baldivis. The good thing, though, is you still have about 4,000 blocks in Baldivis.
Yeah.
That's going to be developed.
There's a lot of developments down there.
That's going to be developed over the next 10 to 15 years. Going slightly further down, you're looking at Karnup. Karnup is actually a hidden gem, in my opinion. Not sure if a lot of people know about it, but Mirvac, which is a publicly listed land developer, has basically signed an agreement with WA to develop 484 hectares.
Yeah.
And make Karnup into a big master plan. So you are talking about an additional 4,000 blocks over a 20-year period, which is also going to include schools, which is also going to include public transportation infrastructure. And it's relatively affordable there in today's market. You can still get a house and land package for between 700 to 750 there. So the growth potential in terms of capital growth is massive. And Karnup is literally one road across from the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
So, depending on location, you could actually just cross the road and walk to the beach, and still, have a lot of room for growth, be it rental, be it capital growth. You go a little bit more inland and there are some benefits there as well. So while historically the development trajectory in WA has been linear, you do have really good pockets of inland developments that can be considered gems as well. Basically, Mundijong-Whitby, that basically falls in that area. And one of the best developments that are up and coming right now is Taylor Springs. For a few reasons, it's backing right onto the Tonkin extension.
Yeah.
So 454, like you were talking about 50 workers and all of that, it is literally a straight road down to the airport.
Yeah.
It's easy access. And being a very new area, it's, at a much sharper price point as well. You have to know that it's only about 5 to 10 minutes away from Byford, which is already a bustling city with all the amenities and everything and the infrastructure. So the spillover effects, like you talked about. Great potential there as well. And yeah, all in, I think the developments that are currently happening in the South are actually expanding on infrastructure that's significantly more developed at the moment. I love the projects in the North, and I think the master plans and the future development there is absolutely massive. I just feel from an infrastructure point of view, South currently has a little bit of legs up.
With Eglinton, one of the most difficult things for my clients that want to get into that the South isn't as suffering as much from is actually getting hold of land.
Yeah.
Like there's not much land being released, which is supply and demand. Obviously, if there's a lot more people going into the area, the price is going to go up pretty quick. I think it was a while back now that Yanchep up the road had a release. I think it was 10, 12 blocks or something like that. And it had over 250, 300 applicants within the first day for just those 10 blocks. And that was 3-4 months ago when I think the market wasn't as hot as it is now, as far as demand goes. So with, again, Eglinton, it doesn't have those large, massive developments coming into play like the, 150, how many hectares was the?
484.
484, sorry, yeah, to undersell you. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the lack of demand, lack of supply into an area can be very, very helpful for investors. It's just what I'm finding at the moment is while clients are waiting to get a block in there, unfortunately, land release has gone up 5-10K every single release. Like Alkimos has gone to a offers situation, which is, they release at 502 and then say offers above that. So it's not even a set price on land, which is nuts to me. Where I guess a mix of the two would be, as in like having the demand and also the supply there would be what I find in Mariginiup Sinagra at the moment. So Sinagra is more of the established side where it's kind of already had the growth spurt. Mariginiup feeds off that. So there's a ridiculous amount of, I think it's 50,000 homes going there, 150,000 people, which is a city.
Yeah.
That'd be one of the largest regional centres if it was its own little spot. The thing is, though, it's got planned infrastructure. So it doesn't have the train line properly announced yet. But if we see as Ellenbrook as an example, I'll probably speak about that now. So Brabham is one of my other choices, and that Brabham-Henley-Brook area, I guess, comes into one. But to have an established area like Ellenbrook, where you already got your shops, your city centre, your schools, everything like that, and that it's gone through a bit of a rough patch. Like 20 years ago, it would have been a bit frowned upon, Ellenbrook. Now it's a $1 million suburb and great area to live. Or it always has been, but it doesn't have the stigma about it as much, is what I've found. But Brabham as basically one estate, but one area, it's got the infrastructure of Ellenbrook to feed off. It's actually closer to the city than Ellenbrook. I think it's a 15-20 minute drive to the airport, which is massive for fibre workers. You've got Swan Valley next door. And then your planned, like the next stages of Brabham are across the road, closer to the city, with more schools going in. And then you've got train station right there. So if you can get into that estate, it is more pricey than the areas we've discussed at the moment, especially if you're building, like if you're building a full bed with a theatre on a big block, you're looking at million bucks, 900,000-ish. Speaking more about the statistics of Brabham specifically, so I think between 2016 and 2021, it had 162% population growth, but that is a testament to a lot of that was just farmland being cut up previously. But through that, I guess it shows you the demand it has. I've been pushing for quite a while for investors for a number of reasons. Number one is, again, population growth. It's got all the infrastructure out there. Number two is the ratio of owner-occupiers to renters is extremely high. I think it's like 92% of people that live in the suburb own a house and they live in the house, whereas other suburbs a lot of people might look at 20 to 30% is generally around the mark. What that means is the rental yield is extremely high. You're looking at 5s for a pretty basic standard house out in Brabham, where the rest of Perth, I think, average is like 4.8% for yield. And that's across all suburbs, not necessarily growth corridors. So and that's speaking to a lot, I guess, lifestyle. The reason there's so many owning occupiers out there is a lifestyle component of that. There's never been any incentives for owning occupiers, as in you can't have any investors buying in the suburb or anything like that. It's just how it's naturally progressed. And that's not something that easily changes overnight. If that's not going to impact your rental yield's going to be solid for a foreseeable future because there's just so little competition out there. So you can say something?
It's actually pretty similar in Baldivis as well. In the past year, you can see new land prices have gone up by approximately $100,000. And people are looking at it and going like, geez, that's a massive increase. But it's been happening historically. Like, 2 to 3 years ago, Treeby was the hotspot. Everyone wanted in. And that was the time we were talking about Mandogalup. And last year, it was essentially that's what happened. Mandogalup happened. It had a 33% growth rate for the year. And if you basically progress down the Kwinana, what's next is really Baldivis. You do have a few new pockets of suburbs in between. But if you're talking about development and infrastructure, literally the next one is Baldivis. So, it's not going to be, I wouldn't be surprised, if we see a similar growth spurt in Baldivis this year as what we witnessed in Mandogalup next year. And over time, of course, it's going to go down. So Karnup would probably be the next location. And I guess the trick with investing is always about trying to be ahead of the curve.
Of course.
Right? And so that's why I'm looking at these suburbs, because the the growth potential is still there, and it's still accessible to a lot of first-time investors.
Yeah.
And it's close to the city. Again, one thing I really like about Baldivis is the lifestyle. So whether you are a beachfront person, you love to go to the beach, you love to wine and dine restaurants at the beach, you've got
the water park across the road as well.
You've got Rockingham there. If you like the pub culture, you've got so many different types of nightlife experiences, not like late nightlives, but in terms of the pub culture, you've got so many. Kings Road Brewery just down the road is one of the most prominent, huge, traditional pubs there as well. You also have the vineyards down the road, equestrian down the road. So if you like to ride horses or you want to learn, how to ride, it's literally there. And it's nestled around a lot of farmland, just like how Brabham was.
Yeah.
Baldivis was pretty much farmland,
swamp and farmland.
Swamp and farmland, basically cut up. But the unique way Baldivis has been developing is that it's retained a lot of this farmland. So you can be driving to the Spires estate, for example, and you'll be passing generational farmland. You'll still see the horses. The nature aspect is still there, and it's very much prevalent. And that's not going to go away because Rockingham has been very particular about how land is developed in the area. So that's really good as well. Schools, so many schools, whether it's childcare, early learning centers, primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, private schools. You've got Tranby College and Mother Teresa that are two of the most popular private schools within the area. You have the Baldivis Sports Complex that was recently completed, I think, about 2 years ago. You even have some really, really good gourmet restaurants, fine dining restaurants, Bistro 129, which is just down the road at Kerosene Lane. No one would have heard about it, but if you really want to experience fine dining and all of that, regardless of your lifestyle, everything's there. If you like the shops, you've got the massive shopping district in Rockingham. And if you ever want to go to the city, it's just 40 minutes down.
Yeah.
Well, 40 minutes up.
Yeah.
So the potential there, whether it's an investment or whether it's an owner-occupier, Baldivis just currently ticks all the boxes in my opinion. And it's estate. Sorry, it's basically an area that's really worth considering.
Yeah. I think the key point you touched on there that I kind of didn't mention too much about was lifestyle's a big factor in not just where. So we can look at an area and look at all the fundamentals and go, we like this area for X, Y, Z. Lifestyle's one that comes into it that you got to want to live there. And if to get renters there, right?
Yeah.
Baldivis has the advantage of being around Rockingham where they might have had their family grow up in that sort of areas, whereas the up and coming areas elsewhere might not have that established placeholder. So with Brabham, I like Brabham just because the proximity into the city is actually very, very difficult to get nowadays and have what you need around it without paying an arm and a leg. Brabham is getting up there, but it's
getting so hard in Brabham. So, where's the spillover there?
As in, where do you go next?
Yeah.
So, well, that's the thing. The more the urban sprawl is going and looking up with like Dayton. So it's going south into that's filled. From that, it'll be Clementine Estate and Upper Swan out from there. And then they'll have its own teething issues a touch when it comes to if there's a huge amount of people going to the area, they'll need to put more infrastructure out there. But as a growth area, it still works quite well. Where I think if you're looking at if you're going side by side with Baldivis and Brabham, I think they're very, very similar. So Brabham feeds off Ellenbrook, Baldivis feeds off Rockingham.
Yeah.
Similar-ish distances from the city. Brabham's probably got the advantage of you got the train stations a bit easier to access than, say, Baldivis, whereas Baldivis has a lot more. It's got actually internal shopping centres and stuff that are way bigger than Brabham. Brabham's got like Coles, Maccas and everything. All the fundamentals that Perth seems to need. So I think, really they're pretty close on the ends, and the growth. Again, using Brabham as an example to say Alkmaar, I think it's more of like a safety measured spot. It's not going to be your huge crazy percentages, but it's also not going to be affected in a downturn where it's well established and it's got the numbers behind it, which again, I think Baldivis is now at the point of.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Baldivis 10 years ago, it
Yeah.
was obviously going through a bit of a ringer, having a bit of a tough time.
Fun fact that you mentioned that in a national survey done recently, of the 10 suburbs in Australia that are the safest, Rockingham has actually come on the list at number 6.
Yeah, number 6, which is, I guess, a testament to the demographics of the area, and what it's not even a first home buyers area anymore, Baldivis, really.
Yeah.
It's your families and like upgraders. You see a lot of bigger homes out in Baldivis, like your 450 plus square meter, which isn't big in some people's eyes, but nowadays you see a lot of smaller blocks and not as many. It's a bit harder to fit a family on a 4x2 on a 260 square meter block and have a backyard. That lifestyle is the same in Brabham and Baldivis. What I want to talk now about is the Sinagra and Mariginiup area. I think where I've talked about Eglinton being a bit of a leaning off the previous growth and still having the coastal aspect. Talk about Brabham having the infrastructure in place and feeding off Ellenbrook, whereas Sinagra Mariginiups, it's going to be that point. It's just not out of that yet, which might not sound like a good thing, but that's where you get your significant growth from.
Yeah.
If you're getting the same as what you're saying with Karnup, if you're getting in at a low price point before anything else comes, yes, it can be a touch more risky, but your long-term growth outlook is going to be when you have your doubling in like 7-8 years and not even waiting for your 10 years plus. If you're looking as a comparison, that again, great area would be like your Byford, Hilbert.
Yeah.
So for a long time, there wasn't really much out there. It was literally farmland. So same as Mariginiup's used for the dirt bikes and going out through the pine forest, everything like that nowadays. So once Byford and Hilbert got the infrastructure like your train lines and actually money being funded by the government for all your schools and stuff like that, it was exploding. Hilbert was doing like 44% or something in 2022, I think it was.
Armadale as a suburb.
Yeah, exactly.
Great
Great example. Yeah. And that was due to infrastructure being put in place, right? So if you're looking over the short term, Sinagra over the last 5 years is pretty well established now. There's not much land left actually in Sinagra itself. It's still got your schools to come into it, and a few other things. But Mariginiup's where the WA government's just announces, 50,000 homes, 150,000 people going out there. It's going to have its own commercial precinct. It's going to have its own shopping precincts. It's got planned rail, nothing set in concrete yet. But as an example, back to Brabham, and Ellenbrook, like the real property growth it coincided with COVID, of course, but once the rail line was out there, it opened it up so many more avenues.
Yeah.
So if you've got an area, it'll be 35 minutes from the city, but you've got a train line going straight in the city and the airport. That's massive for your future growth corridor. If you can, it's obviously not coastal. It'd be close. It'd be eligible for DHA with the RAAF base up there.
Yeah.
Which opens up to investors. But I think if you can get in cheap, ahead of the curve, it's already selling out like hotcakes. Like our first home division out there is flooded with Mariginiup, and it is super difficult to get out there, and that's not going to change anytime soon, even with that amount of land. Because as we know, when there's too much land being released, it can affect the price growth of it. But at the moment, we're seeing the demand so high for these new land releases. Land releases going up for 5-10K plus each release. If you've got 50,000 homes or 50,000 blocks going into an area, you're going to see significant price growth. It's kind of artificial because it's priced by developers, not necessarily the market, but it's still growth. And you see when, if you're selling a home, there's something in people, you don't want to sell it for less than what it is. So there's already that mindset, I guess, and security in that.
Yeah. I think in terms of price, everyone's looking at what's the market price. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever prices are actually coming up and being presented to clients for new estates, they stack up with the Vels and all of that. I actually don't, I think it's just proper growth, because what's happened is, taking it back a little bit, pre-COVID and all of that, WA as a whole was in a slump.
Yeah.
Property prices here were easily 20-30% less than the eastern states. I just feel like what's happened recently is just a very, very quick catch up to status quo, where it should have been, instead of having it progressively following over 10-15 years, it's just been a very fast acceleration. But I do think that growth is actually pretty natural. It, as crazy as it sounds, it is actually pretty natural, and that's where I guess we come in, because it's about finding the growth corridors.
Correct.
Be it north or south. If you've heard it on Facebook, if you've heard it anywhere else, you're still going to get on the curve. At the moment, you'll still get growth, but are you really maximizing your growth? Because the target for 2030, if I'm not wrong, I think if we carry on the standard rate of how many homes WA is building, I think we would still have a shortfall of about 20,000 homes. Also, based on what has been written in the news recently, and if you take that into consideration, the demand is just outstripping supply, and the demand dictates, the price. So how do you best take advantage of that? Whether you're a first home buyer, whether you're an investor, you look at areas that most people haven't started looking at. And like you said, there is an inherent risk there. Because we can't predict the future. But in general, if you're willing to hold it for the long run, property always goes up. And if you get in at the right, time in the right corridors, and you get in early, be it north or south, you actually have the potential to really capitalize on that growth.
100%. Yeah, it might just be us as, I think because we're exposed to the industry a lot more, we're a bit less, I don't think I'll ever buy a blue chip corridor property just because I've seen how much faster you can outgrow those areas. And I think a lot of what we mentioned today is more about, again, it's trusting that the infrastructure is going to be in place. I think we're we're a mix of, we want some established infrastructure in the way we invest, but also we want what's coming. What is going to be that drive that boom? But I think for me, where you're going to find that explosive growth is those areas like Eglinton, where there's that infrastructure to go, areas like Mariginiup, infrastructure, and populate like 150,000 people going into an area is huge. When there's a next city out there, you want to be the people that got in first. And that can be Sinagra. But if you're, as an example with Baldivis, even if you got in when Baldivis started, which would have been about the start of the mining construction boom, or what was the timing on that? Or was it a bit about,
well,
or was it basically when it was going through the ringer? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Thereabouts. Like you're looking at, I think, around the 2010 to 2015 periods where, estates really started to come up there.
And exactly. So even if you purchase at the worst time in Baldivis, you still doubled your money in the last 10 years. And that's because you were, again, ahead of the curve to where Baldivis still got a lot of room to grow, but there's so much urban sprawl, and there's just, people get caught up on, I guess, what they need around it, not necessarily what's coming up.
I think talking about that, it's basically about whether you're investing emotionally or you're investing looking at the figures. Right? A lot of times we, as human beings, naturally we have some sort of emotional investment, and there's always, no matter who you are, you would have a point of referencing. I want it this way. I want it like this. This is because that's what I like. Right? But when we try to actually disassociate that emotion and we look at the facts, the projected infrastructures that's coming up, the current infrastructures, how growth actually happens, that's where you can really narrow down the gems, and then it's just a personal decision on whether you want to go in early and just have, you are taking on a little bit more risk, because you're going in early, but with added risk comes added benefits as well.
True.
So it's really individual dependent. And I think emotions can actually, while important, sometimes they actually make us miss
100%.
the diamonds in the rough.
I completely agree. All right, Nash, growth predictions for your 3 suburbs.
I reckon Baldivis will go past 25% this year.
25%, that's big.
Yeah.
That's a big prediction. Well, Karnup?
Look, I reckon Karnup would be a little slower this year. I would say we would get double digits, but we'll probably get a 15% growth. But I reckon next year Karnup would grow by in the 20% range. Yeah.
And then Mundijong.
Monday would probably be low double digits at the moment, probably about 10-11%.
Yeah.
But again, it's also because of what stage Monday is at.
True.
It's very, very,
Very
very
early.
new. It's very early. But there's so much value there.
Yeah. I'll start off with Eglinton. So I think due to Alkimos getting pretty full, and Eglinton being next in line, I reckon I'd comfortably predict around 14% for this year. Again, I think that's due to just supply and demand to outweigh that, and there's still benefits for first home buyers still getting into the market there. Same sort of thing with Mundijong. I think that's a big first home buyer market, which fuels a lot of demand to the area price point wise. That's not going to slow down pretty easily. So I reckon that'd be my top the marks at, I'd say 22% for this year. Then Brabham's going to be a bit lower, again, a bit more established. So it's not going to have that huge price point. I reckon like 10%, 11%. Be pretty safe for that. But I guess Brabham's more of your yield, looking at sort of the area for out there.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the end of our North versus South discussion.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I guess potential's everywhere. It's just about finding the right one. And thank you everyone for listening to this.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
And that's what this mini-series is all about. So thanks to Conor and Nash for sharing their insights and their passions. I have properties on both sides of the fence, so I'm definitely a fence sitter, but my heart probably pulls me to the north. And this podcast is about sharing insights so you guys can make decisions with confidence moving forward.